Welcome back to day 2 of Mental Health Awareness Week 2020. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Sparks, award-winning coach, author and speaker, and I help busy professionals thrive, not just survive, in this crazy world that we're living in. Now, I'm delighted today to be joined by Rob Stephenson, the founder of Inside Out and also the CEO of Form, which I know he's going to be talking to you about. He's the most awesome mental health campaigner I have come across. Welcome, Rob.
Wow, thank you, Sarah. Well, that's such a great introduction. I hope I live up to the billing.
Well, I have to say, talking about living up to things, I am loving your hair. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with mine, but I'm loving yours and very brave to be doing it.
Yeah, well, I did a bit of fundraising for the NHS, and I think I've raised about £70 so far for this haircut, but my wife and children cut it a couple of weeks ago. But I think it may last beyond lockdown, Sarah, because I'm quite liking it.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when it continues to grow.
Exactly.
However, so Mental Health Awareness Week this year, the theme is kindness, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I wanted to just take a minute and ask you what you've noticed, particularly in the workplace, around kindness. What's happening now? Has it changed in any way? What have you noticed in your work with organizations?
Yeah, well, I think kindness is a great theme because I think it covers a lot of really good stuff around how we care for our mental health. But in answer to your question, I'm certainly seeing an increase in emphasis in employers looking after and trying to look after the mental well-being of their people. For example, I was on one big global call with a large accounting firm, and I was with the CEO, the chief people officer, and the managing partner. And they gave as much airtime to the mental health and well-being agenda as they did the other business imperatives that they had going on. And I've seen many examples like that where organizations are really thinking about the kind of well-being and mental health of their people and being kind to their people. Of course, there are examples where that is not happening and we need more. But I think one of the positives coming out of the crisis is it's pushing mental health and well-being further up the agenda, particularly for employers.
Which I think is great to see. I actually saw that Facebook had completely abandoned their appraisal process this year and are giving everybody an A grade and a bonus to match it, which I thought was a very kind thing to do and certainly a motivating thing to do. And yet, on the other hand, at a more micro level, they had done some research with SurveyMonkey, and only 1 in 4 employees felt that their managers were actually checking in on their own individual well-being. So much as I see organizations really trying and doing so much more around this, to me, there's something about what goes on the ground.
Well, I think that's always the way, isn't it? And that is the challenge, that if organizations and the C-suite and the leadership really get behind the mental health and well-being agenda, that's great because it sets the tone, it sets the culture, but that still has to trickle down. And I think line manager training on these issues and being able to carry that message into the trenches, it's really important, and often that's where the blocker is. So, you know, I'm an optimist, as you know, and I think it's great that if we do have leaders setting the right tone and putting the culture in place, it will take time for kind of every level of management to catch up. We just got to keep working on it.
Absolutely. Keep that focus, keep that fun. Now, talking about focus, I know that you've been focusing on something recently, your most recent project, I think it is, although you're always up to something. So tell us about Mental Form and your new project.
Yeah, so the Form score, it came about, and as you know, I experienced bipolar disorder. It's a mental illness, and a therapist years ago gave me this very simple concept of giving myself a score out of 10 every day to kind of track my mood. And I've been doing that for years, and I find it really effective because sometimes it just helps you pause and kind of notice what's driving your kind of mental form. And it's, you know, there are a bunch of questions that I ask myself, you know, how well have I slept? How well have I exercised? What's my sense of purpose like? Is my nutrition balanced? Am I balancing stress with moments of recovery? So there's 10 simple questions that I ask, and I give myself this score out of 10. And then last year, as a campaigner, I on the mission of trying to smash the stigma of mental ill health, I thought, wouldn't it be fun just to kind of put it in my email signature each day, what my score out of 10 was. And people started to notice this and say, I really like to get an email from you because I want to know what your score is today. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then other people would say, actually when you're on a good score, I find that quite infectious. So that puts me in a good mood. So I started then sharing it much more widely on LinkedIn and started noticing the kind of support that people give others when they're on a low form score. I've been doing it in keynotes and webinars, all manner of stuff. And it's really resonating well. So I'm really excited that we're building this into a mobile application that will allow people to track mood, but will allow people to do so much more around that number, that form score, because actually people feel much more comfortable giving themselves a score out of 10 and then saying sometimes, you know, I'm a 4 out of 10 because I'm experiencing anxiety today. Actually, sometimes just saying a 4 is enough, and then you can get support from other people around you. So yeah, really super excited. As you can see from my background, I'm an 8 out of 10 today, and I'm on very good form.
Yeah, well, that's great to see, Rob. And actually, I checked in before our call today about what score that I had, and I too am an 8. But Brilliant. I've been a bit up and down during this period of time, and it's actually been really helpful. I put my lowest score out there recently, and actually there was huge support coming in to pick me up and dust me off and helping me back onto form again.
Yeah, and I think we've got to accept at the moment, because of I hate to use the word unprecedented because that's the most common word that we use right now, but these unprecedented times that actually our form scores are cycling much more quicker, our moods are changing more often, and I think that's okay. You know, we've got to accept that we will have some low times, and if we're a 4 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10, you know, that's okay, because the pressure that we're under, the stress that we're under, the uncertainty will do that. And I find it really helpful to accept that, and then that helps the journey back out of it. Similarly though, if we then find ourselves at a 3 or a 2 or a 1 out of 10 even, kind of getting into that crisis mode, I think it can just help as a trigger to say, look, let's get some help, let's get some professional help, and let's get some talking therapy just to head off what's happening for us. And you know, certainly some of the most heartwarming moments I've had recently is where I've used the form score tool in a talk, and then I've contacted people afterwards, or people have contacted me, and we've actually managed to get them into an EAP scheme or to see a therapist, because it helps people, I think, relate to what they're feeling a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great to know that it can help people instantaneously actually take some action.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm thinking about is, I wonder how kindness impacts our form.
Well, I think there's kind of a sort of network effect here, because I think actually it's one of the ultimate self-kindnesses to give yourself a little moment in the day, the gift of a minute, to think, how am I today and what's driving that? Because that moment of reflection where you pause and notice what you're feeling, it's a beautiful moment, and that can really then help you just tweak how you handle your day, what you're putting into it. So I think actually doing that process is an act of kindness, for one. Helping others is a key driver of form for me, and doing good. So, you know, acts of kindness, it's been shown, and it's been shown academically that actually doing good for others is good for our own mental health and our form. So one of the pillars is, can we be helping others to uplift ourselves? But I think then also the fact, if we're checking in with colleagues and family members and people in our communities and saying, how are you today? What's your score out of 10? Then there's an element of kindness there, an element of support that we're doing. So for me, you know, the use of form score, it has a number of aspects that kind of feed in and out of the kindness that are really, really positive. Yeah,
absolutely. And I would agree with that. It certainly increases my form score when I'm able to, first and foremost, be kind to myself, and then I'm able to be kind towards others. I did some acts of kindness yesterday, and I don't know, I feel good as a consequence. It was, it really does impact in a positive way.
And I guess you know, you're experiencing an 8 out of 10 today. Would you say those acts of kindness have contributed to keeping that form score at an 8 or pushing it up there?
Absolutely, most definitely. So it was a really helpful thing to do. I found my favorite flowers in the shop, and I bought 2 massive bunches. There were 40 blooms, and then I split it up into smaller amounts and went and delivered them to various people in my community. And I got
what sort of flowers are they?
Well, at the moment, they don't look very much, but they're peonies. They come up into the beautiful, and they're only this time of year. So it's my favourite flower.
It's peony season, Sarah. You've just saved my life. My wife, my hashtag wife, her favourite flowers are peonies, and I always forget when it's peony season. So you've just done me a massive act of kindness, involuntary.
Well, that's good to know, but they're not everywhere. Normally, you can get them everywhere, but I had to search out for these. So yes, go for it, Rob. It could be important. Now, I know that you are one of those people who is out there all of the time. It strikes me as an observer, and I love what you're doing. And I'm also curious about how on earth do you get out there and do so much and still look after yourself?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I was talking about this with a couple of other awesome human beings this week, Pete Trainer and Celia Litvin, who are doing some great stuff in the space. And I think when you are purpose-driven and you've found your sense of purpose and you're doing good in the world and you're helping people, it's very easy to compromise your own well-being because you are so driven. And yeah, the way my brain works, as I say, I'm bipolar, but there's some really interesting things the way my brain works that if I get really focused, I'm so driven and I'm so creative to get there. So at times I will definitely push myself harder than I would be advising people to do in terms of their well-being. So I've got to recognize that, and I've got to recognize also that I'm a kind of role model for well-being and a champion for well-being. So I do have to kind of walk the walk as well as talk the talk. So for me, it's actually focusing on those pillars of well-being, those drivers of form, and just making sure that if I'm out of balance a little bit because I'm working too hard, I know to just refocus on some mindful activities, my exercise, my sleep, and my social connections. Those are the big drivers for me. So a couple of things that I like to do. I'm a cyclist, and I like to make sure that I get my exercise in and prioritize that sort of 4 or 5 times a week. Mostly on the indoor trainer for me right now, but on the road as well. And then mindfulness for me. Mindfulness is an overused term, and it's often just people think it's meditation and headspace, which is a mindful activity. Actually, for me, my most mindful activity is DJing. Right, I've got a set up just outside my office now. You walk out of my office, and there's a DJ booth set up. It's just really epic, and for me, just spending an hour mixing some tunes together. Puts a big smile on my face, but I'm totally focused on what I'm doing. I'm so in the moment. And actually just doing that 2 or 3 times a week is a big release from the kind of stresses that I feel. So I think for me, it's about just trying to maintain balance, but prioritize those things that keep me well. And you know what it's like, because you've had your challenges. I've had my challenges. And we talk to a lot of people who've come through and are managing and recovering from mental illness, that actually we've got that self-awareness. So I know when I'm pushing myself too hard, I know what I need to do. I don't always choose to do it, but I've got that awareness. I think for a lot of people right now who are experiencing maybe anxiety and depression type symptoms for the first time because of the pandemic and the impact, it's actually building up that self-awareness that's really important. So a long-winded answer to a simple question, but I think it's about kind of getting to know yourself and knowing what's driving your form, what's driving your score, and then planning that into your day, because it's very easy for people to kind of sit at their desks all day and get overwhelmed, stressed, too much media consumption, Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, exhaustion at the end of the day. We've got to plan in those moments of mindfulness, those moments of exercise, getting up to stretch, good nutrition, hydration, all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where the form score and taking that temperature check first thing in the morning to set the scene is so important. And it really does, for me, increase my awareness, what is going on today, because it's so easy just to get straight on in without even thinking about it. Yeah,
it's just a moment, right? A moment. I kind of call it the gift of a minute of self-reflection. And for me, when I started putting the form score in my signature, I kind of got to try and update that before I send my first email. So it's sort of that provides the trigger for me. the way we're building this into a mobile application will be a natural way for people to kind of check in before they start using it. So, yeah, if we can encourage healthy behaviors and just give people that gift of that minute, I think they will find it a lot easier to manage the challenges to mental health that we might be facing right now.
Yeah, good point. Well, it reminds me that we've set the people watching this on LinkedIn a challenge this week of doing an act of kindness themselves or observing an act of kindness in someone else and sharing it. So, Rob, what would your plans be for acts of kindness today?
Yeah, so I think certainly the act of kindness that I focus on mainly is asking people to answer that question, how are you today? And so for me, throughout Mental Health Awareness Week, I'll be posting my score and asking people to just check in with themselves and say, yeah, what's driving your form today? And then how can we tweak it? The other one I'm doing, so on the Wednesday of Mental Health Awareness Week, which I think is tomorrow by the time we see this, I'm doing an event for parents where we're getting an author of an amazing series of books called Ollie and His Superpowers to come and talk about how to help parents help their children regulate the emotions that they might be feeling, that they're picking up at the moment. So that's a free event that we're doing. Yeah, it's on my LinkedIn profile for people that want to have a look at it. But really to give parents some much needed tips and tools and knowledge to help kind of manage the stresses with their children that they might be facing.
What a great gift. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today, because I know this week is an extraordinarily busy week for you. So I appreciate you giving us the time. So please do comment below about acts of kindness you've observed and or done. That would be really good to share. And join us tomorrow at the same time. I'll be interviewing Peter Kelly, who is the senior psychologist at the Health and Safety Executive. See you then.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Sarah.
Rob.